More than 2 months ago, a popular uprising in Egypt swept President Hosni Mubarak from power after 30 years in office. The Egyptian military is now charged with reforming that country's political system in preparation for parliamentary and presidential elections. History teaches us that this sort of transition happens in 3 phases, not 2. First, the dictator falls. Next follows a weak interim government. And only then does a final permanent government enter the scene. We remember the French Revolution with the fall of Louis XVI, then the hopefulness of the French First Republic, finally the rise of Napoleon. We remember the October Revolution, first the fall of the Tsar, then the hopefulness of the interim Kerensky government, and finally the rise of the Soviet Union. And most recently, we remember Iran, first the fall of the Shah, then the hopefulness of the interim Bakhtiar government, and finally the rise of Khomeini. Today, we are watching this sequence play out in Egypt. First, Mubarak fell. Then came the jubilation of Tahrir Square and the hopefulness of an interim military government. And now we are left to wonder what Act 3 will bring. Will Egypt remain a strong U.S. ally in the region? Will it uphold the Camp David peace treaty with Israel? Will it commit to the rule of law and human rights at home? Or will Egypt fall into the hands of the radical Muslim Brotherhood? Will it drift towards Iran and embrace the enemies of Israel? Unfortunately, recent developments indicate Egypt is moving in the wrong direction. The Muslim Brotherhood is gaining additional influence and may soon gain significant legislative power. According to a poll released on April 25th by the Pew Research Center, 78% of Egyptians hold a favorable view of the Muslim Brotherhood, and that's better than the youth-led April 6th movement that removed Mubarak from power. In September's planned election, the Muslim Brotherhood plans to contest anywhere between 30 to 50% of all parliamentary seats. Meanwhile, Egypt's foreign policy is shifting away from the United States and our allies and towards the Islamic Republic of Iran and its terrorist proxies. On April 18th, Iran announced the appointment of the country's first ambassador to Egypt in 30 years. On April 27th, the Egyptian Foreign Minister, Nabil Aradi, said that he will meet with the Iranian Foreign Minister, Ali Akbar Saleh, in Indonesia on the sidelines of the Non-Aligned Movement Summit. The two officials will discuss next steps for the Iranian-Egyptian relationship. And on May 3rd, Iran's foreign minister announced that he would send his deputy to visit Egypt in the coming days. Egyptian authorities helped negotiate the recent reconciliation agreement between the terrorist movement Hamas and Fatah, a major setback to Israeli-Palestinian peace. When asked to comment on Hamas being a terrorist organization, Egypt's foreign minister said, quote, "We must allow someone who is fighting for a cause to see the light of day at the end of the tunnel and enter into peace," unquote. On March 28th, Hamas submitted a request to the Egyptian government to reopen its embassy in the Gaza Strip. On April 28th, Egypt's foreign minister announced plans to reopen the Rafah border with Hamas on a permanent basis, a potential boon to the Hamas terrorist organization. And on April 30th, Al Hayat reported that Hamas would be relocating its offices from Damascus, sending the terrorist group's number 2 man, Musa Abu Marzouk, to Egypt. Meanwhile, Egyptians' commitment to democracy and human rights has suffered a serious setback following recent attacks on the country's Coptic Christian community that left scores dead and hundreds more injured. This follows the interim government's move to dismiss the Coptic governor of the city of Quetta only days after his appointment, caving to mass demonstrations organized by the Muslim Brotherhood. As one Coptic bishop told AFP, Quote, they are led by Salafis and the Muslim Brotherhood, and they are chanting, we won't leave until the Christians leave. Finally, on March 28th, Dr. Michael Nabil Sanad, a 25-year-old blogger, was arrested for, quote, insulting the military, unquote, and, quote, disturbing public security, unquote, after posting comments on his blog that were critical of the military's role in the protests. This arrest clearly violated the International Covenant on International and Political Rights and the new government's commitment to the fundamental freedoms of its people. If Egyptians could freely express their views on Tahrir Square, they should have the freedom to express their views online. Mr. President, the trajectory of Egypt's revolution now faces two distinct scenarios. It could become a secular American ally that respects the rule of law, diversity, and a peace treaty with Israel. Or it could become a Muslim Brotherhood, controlled ally of Iran that embraces terrorist groups like Hamas, persecutes its own religious minorities, and rejects peace with Israel. We must do everything in our power to support the secular forces of Egypt, or face the prospect of a strategic setback on the scale of Iran in 1979, laying the foundation for potentially yet another war in the Middle East. And Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that my remarks be entered in the record, and I yield back.
Without objection.